Madam Clerk, can you tell me if we are live?
We are live.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call the meeting, the special city council meeting of March 1st, 2021 to order.
First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Do we need to take attendance first?
Attendance comes after the pledge.
Okay.
So Mayor Pro Tem, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pleasure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag, of the United
United
States
States of
of America,
to the
and
republic
to the republic for which it stands,
America,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
liberty,
and justice for
justice for all.
Councilmember Duncan,
Here.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem James,
here.
and Mayor Ward.
Present.
First item on the agenda is a request to waive reading or resolution ordinances.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you please turn on your microphone?
I believe it is on. Testing.
That's much better. Thank you.
Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James,
Aye.
and Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Next item is oral communications, and we do have some comments.
Okay, thank you.
First comment is from Michelle Schumacher. And she writes, first off, thank you to Captain Ward and Jean James for doing such a great job on the TCA board. I also want to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation for Scott Smith, City Attorney, Eric Fund, and the city staff for fighting the behemoth TCA and the toll roads, and for the lovely amenities that the city maintains for all of us to enjoy. We appreciate the professionalism of Kathy Ward, Jean James, and Chris Duncan. The council meetings with the multiple and disregard for the agenda is wasting all of our time. The agenda is there to let people know what will be discussed and to use time and city resources effectively. Two council members at the last meeting kept interrupting business with non-agenda items. Laura Ferguson and Steve Knobloch, that you openly admitted that during council meetings you were messing around on social media and not focusing on the city business at hand, is astonishing and highly improper and unprofessional. There is a proper channel for public comments, and being engaged elsewhere during council meetings is not acceptable to San Clemente taxpayers. There are many legitimate issues facing the city that do not include Jim Bieber and his 3 devotees on a YouTube channel. We expect more, hopefully a rookie mistake that you will take seriously and correct. Given the fact that Laura Ferguson has threatened to sue the city of San Clemente, and all this in itself makes it impossible for her to represent the residents, she needs to step down. Laura, even after being censured, continues to cast the city in a with her petty grievances. It has been nice to watch the city council meetings from home and be able to participate without having to leave kids and family to attend in person. I hope at this special meeting you can get some ground rules, and maybe the new council members can talk to the city clerk about when is an appropriate time to share new thoughts or concerns, which I am 100% certain is not in the middle of an agenda item. I still have a bad taste from the poor vendors who asked for help with COVID after 1.5 years weddings postponed, instead were given even less certainty, and their contract was attempted to be dismantled. That is not leadership or ethical. The city should honor its word, contract, and the general plan. We have 10% of our space left to develop. It should be done with great thought and care, and not capricious disregard for our general plan. We don't want to live in anywhere USA San Clemente with its character and charms. That being maintained comes down to you and all of your direction as staff. Laura, please stop down and stop this disruption, disgrace, and lack of leadership. If you can't represent with joy and a willingness to serve, then you need to go. Thank you, and be well.
Madam Mayor, if I could, since my name was mentioned in that, whoever sent that email in, their comment was to my looking at social media during the meetings. I don't do that. I asked about the chat feature, not because I'm on social media, but because it had been brought up and had not been addressed by staff or anyone else. That's why I asked. So I, just for the record, I don't get on social media while I'm at council.
Yes,
Okay,
and point of
thank you.
order, Mayor, I agree. That's me too. I never watch the chat while I'm doing the meetings ever. So I just raised it because it's something we had and it was taken away without any notice to us or the people. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have another comment?
We do.
Okay.
This comment is from Christina, no last name provided. Dear council members Ward, James, and Duncan, please stop playing games and attacking Councilwoman Ferguson for defending transparency and freedom. It is your duty to keep the public informed, as this is who you represent, not your own personal interests. It is also extremely offensive how petty you are, and specifically how childish Mayor Kathy Ward and Mayor Pro Tem Jean James are behaving. It is embarrassing. Just stop. Stop trying to intimidate Councilwoman Ferguson for not wearing a mask behind a plexiglass barrier that is 10 feet from the nearest person in a room which holds 400. Stop making excuses for showing up in person. Stop perpetuating this tyranny under the guise of safety and a so-called emergency. Just stop. You are violating your oath and someday will be served. And if there's any justice, imprisoned for this. It is clear who works for Mr. Soros and who doesn't. Eventually, more and more residents will see through your games once they've suffered enough as a result of your actions. You are all accountable for your actions. Stop crucifying the voice of reason. You will be held accountable for your actions.
Next comment is from Laura Smith. I just want to say what a fine job once again Kathy Ward is doing as mayor of our fine city and Jean James as mayor pro tem. Thank you for stepping up to these roles, especially in this difficult time, hopefully, as we are emerging from this pandemic. The reason why I write this is one of our council members, Laura Ferguson, continues to stir up trouble on Facebook, and the latest is her accusations about having to wear a mask last meeting while behind plexiglass, and while not direct, let it be known that Kathy was singling her out. She also whines about wearing one for 5 hours. Well, I wear one for 8 hours every day and 8 hours a day behind plexiglass because there's still a pandemic going on. I have even gotten both of my shots. I don't tell my employer you're picking on me because I know it's required of me. Do I like wearing a mask? No, I do it because I'm a team player. Laura, be a team player like the rest of council and not try to constantly divide. Next comment is from Camille Wyatt. As of this writing, I'm assuming that the live YouTube chat is still disabled. I'm requesting that it be turned back on immediately. The live chat in a public forum has been turned on for well over a year at every single city council and all other public city meetings, including the commission meetings. It has allowed the council members' constituents to communicate with them and each other. To enable the chat once again is a simple click of a mouse that the IT department can do. It's my understanding that Eric Sund made the decision without a vote by council to turn this off. That is not his decision to make. It is the council's choice. So either Mayor Ward, Chris Duncan, and Jean James got together and decided to disable the chat and directed Mr. Sund to turn it off without council members Ferguson or Knobloch's knowledge or consent, or Mr. Sund decided on his own, which is completely wrong. The public has a right to be able to communicate with the council in as many ways as possible, since the majority of council have decided to eliminate the public from their in-person meetings, even though other cities allow the public to be present with proper COVID protocols. Directly after oral communications, council should direct Mr. Sund immediately to contact IT and have them turn it on. Anything other than that is a lack of your fiduciary duty of the residents to the residents of San Clemente. And the final comment for oral communications is from Sue Nesper. I'm not sure why the YouTube live chat has been turned off last meeting. I would like to request that it be turned back on for tonight's meeting and all meetings from here on in. If there's a problem with turning it back on, which I cannot think of a reason why there would be, I would like to know what that is. I have emailed Mr. Sund regarding this matter, but have not received a response from him. And that's all for oral communications.
Mayor Ward, if I may.
Yes, Laura, do you have a comment to one of those
Thank
comments?
you. I do have a comment to follow up with the last comment regarding writing Mr. Sund to have answers as to whether the chat would be turned on. I wrote him after the last meeting and I never received a response either.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, what is our next item?
The next item is item 3, that's policy and procedure 120111, city council meetings and operating procedures.
Okay, so council, I apologize. I did not remember that this discussion occurred last year when I was absent. I think I remembered it from a different council meeting before it actually came to us. So I have asked staff to tee up the video quickly of what occurred and what the council discussion was at that time. So if you can just indulge me, because I wasn't at that meeting also, I've asked for it to be played. So Brian, I understand you have that presentation. I'd like to see the entire item that had public comments. I think there was only like a couple. But I want to hear the council discussion. So I believe it's in that entire item.
This was a prior council's, this is a prior council discussion of the item. Which item?
On number 3, it was a discussion that they had on when they changed the policies, what they changed them to, was a discussion on that. There was only 3 council members present at the time.
Was there really? I remember some objections from other than 3, because I know that 3 of us, I believe, had made some changes, some additions. All that,
Laura-
yeah, go ahead and pull it up.
Yeah.
I don't recall that. That's been
We're
a
going
long
to be
time.
surprised. You're
When
going to be
was it?
surprised when you see it. I was, if you recall, I
Yeah,
was
go
sick
ahead
in
and play it.
January and February. So
Oh, the second time we brought it back. Okay, because
Mhm.
I remember the first time we brought it back when we had a 5-member council.
I don't have that one. So Brian, could you please play that? I'm hoping that he can hear me. Laura, are you nodding?
The next,
Okay,
Yeah, I don't have anything in the meantime, so let's go there.
okay.
next is consideration.
I believe that was the end of the tape.
Consideration of possible amendments to council policy and procedure 1201-11, city council meeting and operating procedures.
Ken Nielsen, followed by Bill Hart, and then Joe Janis.
Well, most of my speech got handled already. Listening to Mr. Ham at that last meeting was unbelievable. What's he doing with the threat to you guys that if you pass this where one councilman can agendize something, or if one councilman with another vote can agendize it, they're gonna bring up things that just to cause problems? Is that the way you heard it? That's the way I heard it. It wasn't right. And I think you as councilman should be able to agendize something. If you decide that one more person needs to vote on that, that'd be fine, but I just assume one person can do it. We need to get things on there that sometimes you may not like, but we need to get it on here. When somebody wants something agendized, they can talk to a council person and get them to ask to get it agendized. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Bill Hart, followed by Joe Janice.
Well, first of all, I'd like to compliment Tony. Being kind of an originalist myself, I always love to go back to the founding fathers and hear what they had to say. But I'm going to come at this from a different direction, and that's the Brown Act. I've been through, I don't know, these ethics courses that they have you take, and I've done that several times while I was serving on various commissions or committees. And it was always plainly clear to me that the idea of the Brown Act is that discussions and decisions are made out in the open, and that those decisions should not be made. They should not be prejudged ahead of an open discussion on the subject. And my own experience is that I've sat on a committee and had my mind changed from time to time during those discussions. So I don't know how you're going to decide on this. Frankly, I don't have any problem personally with just allowing one member to put something on the agenda. I don't have a problem with making it a requirement for two. But I do have a problem with making it a requirement for 3 people for it to be on the agenda, because there is an appearance of impropriety at that point. And essentially what you're saying is that the majority can veto a discussion on an item before it is ever discussed and decided. And so I know that that's not what is intended by that, but even the appearance of impropriety is wrong. And so I would say that a minority of 2 or even 1 should be able to agendize something on the and bring it up for discussion at a later time. And so that would be my advice to you. And I look forward to seeing your decision on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Joe Janice.
Well, I'm not going to be very popular tonight. I heard the claps. Laura, could you hold up the agenda for this week? I think it's like 1,200 pages, something like that. Yeah, that's how much it is. And that's how much you guys have to read. And that's how much staff has got to write. I've written staff reports before, and they take a long time. We have criticism from this podium a couple of weeks ago about not a very good staff report that was written. My God, how much work do you want to put on staff? And I believe Chris was saying that you guys have the majority now, they're in the minority, and he gave an example of why you don't want to do it. If you want to spend time for our staff to write these things on something that doesn't have a chance of passing, well, I guess so be it. You guys are going to have to do that. But you guys all have the ability to collaborate with each other before a meeting and talk and try and get things organized. And if you have that much of a pool, and you all guys are all reasonable persons, you'll put it on the agenda. Imagine if the unpermitted beach event would have got agendized. Staff would have had to write a report. They would have had to check it out, had code enforcement involved, and to find out, my goodness, the city manager wasn't even there. And then you're going to have a bunch of these people come and say, you mean I got to have 20 people? If I get my grandkids and kids are going to go to the beach, I got to get a permit for this stuff. You guys will open a can of worms that don't need to be opened up. It's like a few weeks ago, or a month ago or so, someone said, you know what, we ought to get rid of some staff people and hire more deputies. So now you want to get more staff people and have staff be able to make all these reports. You guys got to really think of what you're doing here. So I want to tell you, I think you should stay with the 3 people. And I think you should think long and hard about this and talk to all our staff members to see how much time and effort goes into these reports. You guys can talk one another, and you could get 3 people to put something on the agenda that you think might be borderline. That's all I got.
Thanks, Joe. Any other cards?
Well, I'll start out since I suggested the item. I would like to suggest that we have one person, one member of the council can place something on the agenda. Of course, if it's abused, we can bring this policy back again and revise it. But we all represent the same constituency. We're elected at large, and I think everyone's voice deserves to be heard. That's one item, and that's 4.5.4 of this agenda report. I'd like to make a couple other comments about a couple other sections in this agenda report regarding city council agendas. Since we bring this policy back, City Clerk, can I suggest a couple edits to some other sections? Okay, thank you. So section 4.5.1 on page 7 of this agenda report indicates that the city manager shall be responsible for determining the items to appear on a city council meeting agenda. I would like to recommend that we have the mayor and the city manager have a agenda setting conference. I know that's done in a lot of cities. So there's not just the city manager putting it together, but the mayor as well. Don't want to create too much extra work for you, Mayor Bain, but I think it would be very beneficial to have that. And lastly, section 4.7 in closed sessions. And I know I brought this up last year. I would like to see us have minutes, confidential minutes, of course, of closed sessions. I know for years our city of San Clemente did have closed session minutes, but those went away with the new law firm, BBK. So it's been a little over 4 years that we haven't had closed session minutes. So I'd like to recommend that too under section 4.7. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember James. So I'm coming at a little bit different angle. So I think I was the one that originally agendized this over a year ago, and I suggested one person. And I think, Laura, your sort of points are good in that the minority should be represented. That was my intention. But in looking at this, I've looked at a lot of other cities, and Dana Point's the only one that I'm aware of that allows a single council person to put items on the agenda. And what they do is they allow that council person to do so, but they have to prepare the staff report. And it's more of a study session. That way you don't have staff time that gets taken up with the issue of writing a staff report for a bunch of different issues that maybe aren't going to go anywhere. So I want to suggest a middle ground, because that seems to be what my reputation is becoming, is I'm the middle ground guy. Let's go for 2. And I think what that does is it does allow a minority to get things on the agenda. It at least respects staff time and provides that there's at least 2 folks that want to discuss the item. And look, I think we're all adults at this dais. We can figure out how to get that done and represent the people without wasting time. So I think that would be a good middle ground. It is going to be more work for me to take on a conference, but I'm willing to do that if the council thinks that that would be productive. And if the city manager would like to do that, I think I could do that as part of my briefings or in calls. So I'll do my best to give it a try. And if it doesn't work out, I may be coming back to you folks and saying, this is not working out, and we can readjust. The third item, the minutes, this is where the lawyer side of me takes over. I think that would be a really bad idea. And the reason is anytime the city gets sued, the first thing that a law firm on the other side is going to do is request our confidential minutes. And my concern would be, because I've done it, I've done that as part of cities that do that. And that's the first thing I go to. And I think what happens or has a tendency to happen is people start being as free and open and closed session. And I think that would be a bad thing for us. Just to have that threat looming out there. And I've seen cities lose battles on those minutes, and it's been devastating to them. And that's my word of caution with that. And so having been the lawyer that sues for those, I just have seen them get used for, not to say I use them for bad, but I've seen them used for bad things. So I just throw that out there. I understand why you would want to do that. And I think there's valid reasons for doing that. But I just caution that once we go down that road, it's going to be a target of litigants, and God knows how many of those we have. So,
Mayor Bain, I have a couple things. I could support 2 council members placing something on the agenda. I think that precludes tyranny from the majority, which, going back to our originalist back there, I think Jefferson talked about it, Madison talked about it. So I think going with 2 precludes that tyranny of majority, but at the same time, it provides a safety valve that 2 people actually have to put something on. To Joe Janice's point, that we're not overloading city staff. So I think 2 goes down, right down the middle. And so I could support 2. I hope we can pass that this evening. In regards to minutes in closed session, I think from my perspective, I think I'm freer. I feel more comfortable with an exchange of ideas without that being memorialized and being discoverable at some later point. So I would be against minutes for the closed sessions.
All right. Did you want me to take on the added responsibility of, which I'm happy to do. So you said, you didn't say anything about it. So I will take on that additional responsibility. No, that's fine. So
Going to include me in those meetings, so I didn't say anything.
So I just want to commend Councilwoman Ferguson or Mayor Pro Tem Ferguson for pushing this. I think it needed to be done. So thank you for being tenacious, but hopefully you'll sort of accept the middle ground. And I think it is right to represent the minority. And I trust, I think Chris I don't think he meant what he said. I don't think he's going to try to waste time. I think he was advocating a position. I hope he won't. I hope Councilmember Ward won't, but I know that we can all work together. And I think this is ultimately the right call, and will be good for the city in the long run. My 2 cents. So.
I'm just trying to think how I'm going to write, thinking ahead. So the mayor and city manager together come up with the agenda. What if there's a difference of opinion? Should I go there or not?
Don't go there yet.
Okay.
I think we'll try to work out. I don't know, Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a thought on that? How you've seen it done in other cities? I think you said there's some examples. I have no experience whatsoever.
Agenda setting conference. So you can have, what's really helpful, and I've seen this in other cities, there's an ongoing tentative agenda that staff can add to, as long as they submit it to the city clerk's office. And there's a standing. So it might be like at this point in time, it might be 3 more months out, but it's a tentative, right? So anyone in the city staff can access it. So they're putting in items that might be coming up at any given time, like in the near future, right? So it kind of gives a gauge of what could be coming that could be discussed for the agenda. So that's helpful, right, in terms of timing. Now, any other kind of items would come from the council based on the 2 votes. Right? So those would be automatic. And then special presentations would come as they come. So I think it just kind of works organically that way, but mechanically, this tentative type agenda, I think, helps guide those agenda conferences. Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. I think with the 2 council member, something that's going to want to be on the agenda, and if there's a disconnect between, say, me or whoever the mayor is in the future and the city manager, the mayor could come back and bring it to the council and say, there's a disconnect. You guys want this on the agenda. I think that's the way that could be resolved.
If the mayor and the city manager are repeatedly at loggerheads on the conference, we have bigger issues.
Well, Mr. Dunick agrees with me, then you guys fire me and keep what he has to say. So, all right. So I think we've reached consensus here. So do you want to try?
Oh, Mayor, can I just, one other point of clarification. We were looking at 4.5.4. That had 3 members of the council proposing the agenda item at a meeting. And I assume that you mean that it would work the same way here, except that 2 would do it in the meeting, not outside the meeting. You see what I'm saying? That they would look, that discussion would occur here. The staff report and analysis would be ordered here as opposed to offline. I think that's what you meant. It would work the same way, except it'd take a consensus of 2, not 3.
I meant what Mayor Pro Tem Ferguson meant. So that's what she meant then. Perfect. Does that work?
Okay, so council members,
Of reading this motion.
Laura, I don't want to interrupt. Can I just give you actual text and then we'll know if you're going with the consensus? Okay, so to section 4.5.1. Is this okay, Joanne? The second line would say pursuant to section 4.5.4, this policy would be the same until it says the city manager and mayor in conference shall be responsible for return notice. So it would work just like that. I think that's what you meant. And then 4.5.4 would say 2 members of the city council may propose at a council meeting an item be agendized for future council discussion, consideration, action. Then the comma will, let's see, period. Let's see, sorry. Let me figure that out. May propose at a meeting that an item be agendized for council consideration, consideration, or action. Oh, I know. Subject to notice and hearing requirements, period. The item shall be agendized for a future meeting and notice is required by law. Is that all right? So you would strike if it's supported by a majority vote, and it would say, comma, subject to notice and hearing requirements, the item shall be agendized for a future meeting and notice by law. Okay, thank you. Thanks. I think we got that crystal clear now.
sure. So, council members,
Oh, thanks, Mayor Bain. I just have one item to request to place on a future, either the next or the meeting after next agenda for consideration of agendizing the regulation of gas-powered leaf blowers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
So I have one item just really quickly. So on,
So, yeah, we're having trouble getting that to stop. Great. That was enlightening, especially that I wasn't there and Councilmember Ham wasn't there. I had forgotten completely about that. So I think it was helpful to hear the changes that we made this past year. So council, what's your pleasure?
My pleasure, Madam Mayor, is that this item was agendized by Laura. I'd like to hear what Laura's issues were. I see no relevance to listen to 20 minutes of a prior city council discussion. I'd like to know why what Laura agendized, and I'd like to hear each of her items. I'd like to consider them and vote on them so we can hopefully get out of here at a decent hour tonight.
Mr. Knobloch, I expected to do that, but I'm waiting on Councilmember Ferguson to speak.
You just asked me to right now. Thank you very much.
I did.
Councilmember Novak, for raising that. And yes, I did bring this back, and I did go over these suggestions or just comments regarding our policy and protocols for how our council meetings have been taking place at the last meeting, but it was after midnight, so we didn't act on them. We moved them to this meeting because that was recommended. This meeting was recommended by council members Knobloch and Mayor Pro Tem James, so which is good. It's a prudent time to do that. But I did want to clarify. I did mention earlier, and Mayor Ward, you looked a little perplexed when I mentioned we did talk about this policy before. Policy 1201-11 was brought back previously. It was at the time when our city attorney Scott Smith gave a former late mayor advice to throw people out of the council chambers. So we got sued and we had to we settled that, and then we had to bring that policy back to make some corrections and clarifications to that. So, but it's always good to bring this back and tweak it and make sure everybody's on the same page and in compliance with the policy as we want to have it, right? Because it's our decision as a majority on council. So couple things, and I'll reiterate them very quickly because I did mention them previously, but I'll start with the one that I'd like to see is the confidential closed session minutes. I know former mayor, as you showed in this video recap, as a lawyer, did not find those to be a wise decision to have. But oftentimes on council, I find that, you know, time goes by, there's a lot of stuff that happens, and we say, wow, what happened there? It's nice to be able to go back to some confidential record, because there's been times when all of us have been on a different page in terms of what happened there. As recent as talking to the city attorney about the hospital and the standstill period, the expiration for that. I don't remember us extending that, right? And I did the math with the settlement agreement that we have with Memorial Care, and I thought it was coming up in mid-March, and the city attorney said, oh no, that was extended and agreed upon by the parties, but we don't have an executed agreement. So I don't think it ever happened, okay? So that's why it would be really nice to have a permanent record of this for closed session minutes, confidential, only for us to see, not for the public to see. The council could decide in 5 or 10 years to make those public, but that's not the case. And the fact that Rattan and Tucker, who was the prior contract law firm for the city of San Clemente for 33 years, did the council at the time, all those years, did have minutes. And that legal counsel believed that it was appropriate to have minutes. And we did that. So perhaps we were more transparent then, I don't know. But regardless, it was okay for that law firm from over 3 decades, but it's not now. So I just think it would be helpful for us to be organized and coordinated in our thought processes when we have to, you know, go back and revert to see what happened. So I mean, quickly, okay. And then the other one was the 3 votes by council to have staff write an agenda report. We know that it has two members to have something agendized. And I know, Mayor Ward, since you've come on as the mayor for our council, that you have noted a few times we needed 3 members to support having staff prepare an agenda report. So I just want to suggest that we add that to the policy so it's there and it's clear. I have no objection to you doing that, but I just want it to be part of the record and know that we're, you know, meant to follow that. And then the mayor and city manager conference over upcoming agenda items to determine what's on the agenda. I know that it's helpful to have the mayor involved and not just have the city manager unilaterally decide what's on the agenda. Some things may come up that aren't emergency items because there's specific rules for emergency items at meetings in that section of the agenda. But to allow that, I don't see it being abused. But of course, as I mentioned at the last meeting, the city council would have to take a vote anyways, no matter what the mayor did add to the agenda. And as noted in my research in that video clip that you showed, it's really helpful to have this working copy of an annual year. You might be 3 or 4 months in advance, but to be able to have a snapshot of what's to come. So I'd like to see us do that. And then let's see. Official correspondence, that would be under section 4.2.5. The mayor shall execute all official city documents, warrants, and correspondence approved by the city council. I know that there was 2 times last year while I was acting mayor that you signed letters, and that's not in the policy that we do that. So we got to make sure as a council that we abide by that, because like you're mayor now and only you are instructed and assigned to be able to sign those documents. So I want to make sure that we follow that as a council. So that's an observation. And then the placement of the items that are initiated by the council members at a meeting in which we get a second, not a second, sorry, we don't vote on that, but we get support from another member, that those appear as they had prior to you resuming the mayor role, taking over the mayor role under new business, because it's appropriate to be under new business to take action and vote. And I know the city attorney mentioned under council reports at the end is where we started seeing them appear. But I don't agree with him. I disagree with our city attorney on that. And then let's see, that's my opinion. And then, oh, just a couple of protocol observations I've made. And that would probably fall just under the Rosenberg's rules of orders, but no interrupting other members when they have the floor repeatedly, because it really not only delays us finishing the meeting in a timely manner, but it's disrespectful and it's against, you know, the Rosenberg's rules of orders, and the public doesn't want to see that. Just let our fellow members finish their comments and not, you know, off track with their train of thought, because it's very, very disruptive and counterproductive to us working together as a council in a unified manner. And then lastly, to make sure that when we have staff advocate for a particular agenda report that they've prepared, if it's not going their way, that the mayor or other council members can too, call for a point of order to make sure that we correct that, because staff is not supposed to be advocates for items. They're supposed to be, they're here and supposed to answer the questions that the council members have, and that's all. And then just ensure that those that participate in the meeting don't exceed 10 minutes, because anyone outside of this governing body is not to have more than 10 minutes. And there was an incident I mentioned at the last meeting that had taken about 30 minutes. So anyway, so I think it's good to bring this policy back every year, or every time we have, every 2 years when we have new members, to just refresh and tweak it accordingly. So that's it. Thank you, Mayor Ward.
Thank you. So council, if it's your pleasure, I can go through each one that she just brought up, if you would like to do that, or does anyone like to talk about a different one? Or do you just want to talk when we get to each one of those? I think I'm comfortable with going with each one and seeing if, you know, we've got support for those. Okay. It's so the first one is 4.2.5. The mayor shall execute all official city documents, warrants, and correspondence approved by the city council. I didn't see any changes to that. The key wording in there is approved by the city council.
I don't
You
know.
know, anyway, I didn't hear any changes on that. Does anyone have any comments?
My comment was that, Madam Mayor, that I didn't see any changes on the protocol. I think Councilwoman Ferguson's comment was simply that protocol be adhered to, because in her opinion, it had not been adhered to. So I don't know that we need a change to the protocol at all. So I just agree that it's a concern and needs to be properly followed. But that wasn't her first point. Her first point was the minutes, the closed session minutes.
Would you, I'm going in order of the document. I think that's the easiest way to go. So that's the only reason I'm trying to do that, because she kind of skipped around. Thank you. So I have to do it that way.
All right.
Okay. The next one, and Mayor Ferguson, or Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get this right. Councilmember Ferguson, just tell me if I skip one. The next section was under council agendas 4.5.1. I think this was in the mayor setting the agenda in conference with the city manager. And this is what I remembered. I'm glad we watched the videotape. Mayor Bain agreed to do it, but there was no agreement that the mayor set the agenda, just that they were going to try and work it out. And what he agreed to and the rest of the council was that if there was a question, that the mayor would come back to council. I think it should still stay that way. I don't see any issue. I don't see where it would be a problem, but I don't see that we should change that. It says what it says. If we want to add that part that the mayor would come back, but I remember Mayor Bain saying this. I think he just said, let's see how it works out. We have never heard any different. Does any other council member have a comment on that?
Just a point of order. I think Rosenberg's Rules of Order, Madam Chair, suggests that the chair in the process of chairing the meetings gets the opinion of the other members and then adds her comments at the end instead of leading off with your comments as chair of the meeting. It might be appropriate for all the council members weigh in and then you wrap up prior to any vote.
Steve, I already asked to do it this way because she skipped around so much. I want to go to each one that she did.
Has nothing to do with the order of the presentation. It has to do with the chair opining on the item as opposed to letting the other council members speak before the chair wraps up the item.
I'm not opining. I'm asking each one. If we go to each one, I had everyone nod. If we could go to each one and any council member that had a comment, we could look at each one. That's what we do when something is mixed up and it's out of order. We have to do it that way so we get each one.
My comments have nothing to do with the sequence of the items that Laura brought up. My comment deals with the role of the chair in driving the narrative instead of chairing the meeting. Once Laura has brought up the items, it's appropriate, in my opinion. I think the rules of order address this in a number of places. Roberts does and Rosenberg's does, that the chair listens to the other comments and then provides their input last prior to a vote. That's my comment, not the order of presentation.
Okay, Councilmember Noblock, City Attorney, can you please opine on that, whether we are able to go through and discuss the different items, because she is trying to make changes on various ones.
Yeah, I think I'm looking up Rosenberg's, but I think you're not understanding what Councilmember Noblock's trying to say. I think he's fine with the sequence, us being on 4.5.1 now, but before the mayor weighs in with
Okay.
feelings about 4.5.1, go around the horn to other council members first. I think that's what Steve is. So the order is fine, but as you weigh in, maybe go as you're used to from end to end, even though you're not.
So I do have the ability to ask the council to opine on each one. Okay, thank you. That's mostly what I was trying to get to. So I'm sorry, Councilmember Noblock, I did not mean to insert myself on there. I was just trying to get the discussion going. I wasn't seeing anyone commenting. So council 4.5.1. What is your pleasure concerning that one? Leave it as it is or make some changes?
Mayor Ward.
Yes.
I'm wondering, that was an open question that was left at that prior council meeting. Has there been conflicts between the mayor and the city manager? Because if there has not been, there's no reason to change anything. If there has been, I think maybe then we can talk about it. I'm not in those meetings, so I don't know.
I can tell you that it was never brought to a council meeting that there was an issue on agendizing an item. So I don't know. I haven't had an issue.
Councilmember, City Manager, or excuse me, Interim City Manager Eric Sund. No, there hasn't been a problem. Staff has come back to council for clarification from the council, and they have provided that direction consistent with the policy, and staff has no issues.
Mayor Ward, please.
Yes.
Yep, I didn't bring anything back to council, but when we had a interim city manager for a while named Mr. Dunnick, he just wasn't engaging with me on the conferences in accordance with 4.5.1 for a few meetings, but I brought that to his attention and it went well after that. So.
Okay. So council, is there anyone that wants to see that changed as it was said or stated in the prior council meeting? Okay, we're going to move on to 4.5.4, which was where two members of the city council may propose at a council meeting that an item be agendized for a future discussion. I believe Councilmember Ferguson, is this the one that you provided an extra comment?
Now, this is the one where I would like to see right after 4.5.4 to have the decision by 3 members, which is what you've practiced in the last couple of months.
Okay.
The practice that we have 3 members agree that a staff report can be provided with that item that's recommended in 4.5.4.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Smith, could you provide us with a line on that? Or are we going to be bringing these back to the council in full print for us to determine at our next meeting?
Mayor and council, we can, I'm looking at Joanne. We can do it either way. We could try to fashion something tonight or get it top to bottom back to you to see at your next meeting.
For clarification,
So, go ahead.
Mayor, is that just for a staff report, or is that for the use of staff resources?
It's the same thing, right? If we're going to have a staff report, that's using staff resources. So if we could get that clarified, Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying it. Councilmember Ferguson has been bringing this up, that it doesn't say that, and it is a policy that we've always done. So I would like to see that added. I think the rest of the council agrees on that, because we've had many discussions on this. Mayor Pro Tem James, do you have any comment?
The only thing I don't want to vote on it this evening. I'd much rather have it come back in writing and see it in writing at our,
Okay.
at the March 16th meeting, I believe.
That'll be easy.
Okay. So tonight, we're just going by consensus then to see that, we all agree on those.
I'd just like to say that I thank you, Councilmember Ferguson, for bringing that up. I think that's a great point, that it was missing there. And then when we have something missing, it just sort of, leads to that kind of uncertainty. So I think that's good to get that nailed down.
Okay, and then, thank you. The last one I have is under 4.7 closed sessions. It was brought up that we should bring back confidential minutes.
Madam Mayor, before we move to the next item, I don't think we were done with that last item.
Okay, tell me.
I had a question concerning that Mayor Pro Tem's suggestion that we have a report. You said we're acting by way of consensus this evening. So, City Attorney, will you be bringing specifically, I need to know that you'll be bringing back a proposed language to
line.
modify that?
Yes,
That will
we'll bring
occur?
back a red line for the meeting on the 16th. So you'll be voting on actual text.
Okay,
That's-
you'll have a new agenda item, a new
Yes.
business item on this.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. So again, now we're back to 4.7 closed session.
Mayor,
Is there any council member? Oh, Mr. Smith, go ahead.
and I'm doing this on Councilmember Ferguson's behalf. 4.5.4 in her mind and in mine too, could use clarity about where those items appear on your new business, old business, or for action or discussion under city council items. That would help us a lot for you to dictate that.
Okay, thank you very much. I didn't catch that. I had different notes as we were going through. Any council comments on that, where it appears on the agenda? Does it come under council comments? Because 2-member councils
My feeling
did
is
it, or?
any item that the council members bring up needs to be on the agenda, which means it's under new business, not necessarily under council comments section. That's just my thinking.
Is there any other comments?
Is this a question about when the item is brought up to see if we have 2 or 3 supporting it, or where it goes on the agenda the next time after it is? Which one of those are we talking about?
It appears on the blue sheet next week.
Okay, so this is the meeting after the meeting where we have the 2 or the 3 potentially.
Yes.
Section.
Wait, is there no, I'm a little confused. That would never be in, if we agendize something on the blue sheet, it would never be on council member comments. It would be under new business, would it not?
That's the question about what the council's preference is. on that.
Yeah, I think it goes under new business.
That's what's my concern to bring this back, because it has for the 2 years I've been on council until this year, it's been appearing under council member reports.
See, I need clarity on that because I don't recall that. Can any interim city manager, I don't remember those being under new business or I'm not sure, maybe the prior council, we didn't agendize things too many times with two people.
I think, and I'll ask the city clerk to opine as well, but I think the rationale, as long as it appears on the agenda, it's something that the council can take action on. We're just talking in terms of what's more of an appropriate location for the agenda. Staff, including the clerk's office, and again, Joanne, correct me if you disagree, when council was initiating these items, we would just bring them back as a title under city council comments. When I say initiate, that's two council members asking for something to be brought back. We put the title on there under city council comments and allow the council to discuss that, and then in essence seek direction from three as to whether a full agenda report needed to be done or some type of direction. The placement of it on the agenda doesn't really, I don't think it matters. It'll be able to be discussed regardless of where it's at in the agenda. It's just a preference from the council perspective.
So I will offer just my experience being on council that when it was under council comments and it was agendized there, it was kind of a prompt to you. You saw it easier than in the body of all the reports, that you needed to follow up and bring your comments if you had it agendized. It made it easier for me that it was at the end. So I don't know if that's just, otherwise it would just be in the middle with just a header.
I have a question, Mayor Ward, if I may.
Yes.
For Mr. Sund, thank you very much. Did you decide to change this, Mr. Sund? Because it's something I just started seeing this year, the placement of the city council and the supported item.
Councilmember Ferguson, I don't think it was something that we did recently. The agenda's put together in collaboration with me, the city clerk, and Scott, but I can't speak to when it actually physically changed.
Okay, I'd like to know that because I don't recall seeing it there until this year, but I'd like to see that under new business, but I've made my point. Thank you.
So council, I need to take a straw poll, a vote on where it should be. Should it be under new business? Councilmember Noblock?
As a point of order, Madam Mayor, I personally object to straw polls. We're a deliberative body elected by the people. We have a decision before us. We can vote without a straw vote and then a vote. I think that I just vote if you want to call for a vote. But my opinion on the issue, I've already expressed it. Three of us have, that we needed a business. Two council members bring something up for consideration. It's being considered, which means it may be voted on. It's new business because it hasn't been discussed historically. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, but it's new business. It's being brought up. So I think it's almost a no-brainer. You put it in a new business, and when we get there, we consider it and we vote either to ask for more staff information or to vote, approve it or deny it, or to table it.
Okay, Councilmember Noblock, I didn't realize that there was a third person on that. I thought it was just under discussion. So I'm asking, I need to know where we're going on that. This is coming back to us for a formal vote at our next meeting. That's why I was taking it just a straw vote on this, because we will be voting on it after. We can vote at it again. I just need to know, if no one's making a motion, I need, a straw vote of what we're going on this item.
I will make a motion that since Laura brought it up, it's appropriate to discuss it and to vote on it. I would make a motion that items brought up by the suggestion of two council members be agendized under new business for consideration at the next meeting. And that's a motion.
I'll second your motion.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you go ahead, Chris? We can discuss it.
I'd like to offer an amendment that to address the point that was made, that the comments be or the item be listed under new business, and that it be delineated which council member brought that forth. So that makes it clear. That addresses a little bit, Mayor Ward, your concern about people kind of missing that was the item that they brought up.
I'll incorporate those comments into my motion, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, so seconded still by Councilmember Ferguson?
Yes.
You'll second that friendly amendment?
Yes,
Okay.
that's a very good amendment. Thank you, Councilmember
Thank
Duncan.
you.
Okay. Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noblock,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James,
Aye.
and Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
All right, council, the last item that I have, and Scott, thank you for correcting me, is under 4.7 closed session. Is there any comments, suggestions, or motions on adding confidential minutes to closed session?
Madam Mayor, if I might.
Yes.
I appreciate the 20 minutes or so of the prior council's consideration, but getting back to a prior mayor's comment on subpoenaing minutes of the closed meetings. While that's a concern, it can always be subpoenaed. Anything can be subpoenaed, but it's still confidential. Those minutes are confidential. They're only not confidential if the council has discussed something inappropriately. And as a transparent city, we shouldn't be conducting in closed session matters that are not appropriately to be discussed in closed session. So I think the minutes are kind of important. Historically, they've always been conducted. It's only very recently that we haven't had minutes of closed sessions. And quite frankly, I think it's valuable because even as an example, last week, we had a discussion here about what was decided on in closed session. And there was a disagreement among two council members as to what was discussed and what was decided concerning the last meeting when we adjourned. And so I think those minutes are important, and I'm supportive of making that amendment to 4.7.7.
So, Madam Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question, and probably directed to the city clerk or the city attorney, to Council Member Knobloch's point. Only recently have we? What is recent, and when did we change, and why did we change?
Madam Clerk, do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
I took notes in closed session, I would say until about 5 years ago. And it was stopped because there was concern about whether they could be discoverable.
That was 5 years ago, about the same time we terminated the ethics committee and the ethics rules in our city. At the same time.
It was about the time.
I don't know.
Scott, were you?
I maybe elucidate a little bit. I don't want it to be insinuated that that was my idea, because I couldn't care less. I think both sides of the issue have been very well expressed in the proceeding tonight. When I came to this office, I think Joanne attended the closed session minutes for a meeting or two, and then the council decided that it didn't want to do that. Like I said, I presented both sides of it. I've never worked since 1985 with the city council that did have closed session minutes, but that's not to say that the sentiments expressed on both sides of the issue are valid. They can present a discovery fight. If the minutes exist, then there can be resources spent in protecting them from discovery. But on the other hand, if it helps perpetuate institutional memory by those who participated, then of course they serve that purpose. But I just wish I could set the record straight that I had nothing to do with that change. It had been in the works when I took off.
I didn't see, did you think I suggested?
No,
you
I
did?
didn't, but it was suggested earlier. Thanks for letting me clarify. Yeah.
Councilmember James, do you have any comment?
This is a close call. That's my number one comment. We've had a number of situations in which we've had a difference in our memories, difference of opinion of what was discussed in closed session. At the same time, I am very concerned about memorializing closed session discussions. So Scott, I would reach out to you and ask you a question of how high is the bar for a plaintiff, for a litigant to get into, to obtain our closed session minutes. Certainly, former Mayor Dan Bain was extremely concerned about that, and so I'm going to defer to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Pro Tem James. I am not worried with this city about what those minutes might say, especially if they're action items like your open session minutes. I'm not worried about that compromise. I'm not worried about protecting them. Councilmember Noblock, I think you're right. When things happen with the attorney present, they're protected by the attorney-client privilege and unless they're forensic evidence for a crime.
Yeah.
But even then, it's very hard to discover those. So I'm not worried about the ultimate outcome. I'm worried a little bit about the expense of getting there. If there is a discovery fight about getting hold of those minutes, if they exist, it can be a part of it. There again, that might be the reasonable price of having the minutes on hand internally for the reasons that have been stated
Yeah.
here. But they're hard to get at.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
And Gene, one interesting thing to respond to your comment that you raised about Dan's comment. You know, Dan made a point of saying he always requests them, but he never said once that he actually ever received them. So,
He didn't say that.
He did say
You
that.
don't want to brag. No, I don't know. But thank you for bringing that because I do think, especially if the council's meeting after hours, talking about real estate negotiations or something without a lawyer there, then that creates a more difficult issue. But that's not what we're talking about in the city of San Clemente. And I think it would be.
No, I
we
think
would
the
not have-
comment.
Steve, can you hold on one moment? Scott, can you finish?
I don't
I
think.
didn't hear it.
Concern about the difficulty of protecting those minutes if they're privileged, yes.
Okay, Councilmember Duncan, I believe, is waiting to speak. Councilmember Knopfler, do you have another comment? No, okay.
Are you talking to Chris or to me?
Chris has been waiting to speak. He was the next in line to speak. Go ahead,
Sure.
Councilmember Duncan.
I think I have something to add here, having been a government attorney for 16 years in an agency that was sued probably as more than any other federal agency, U.S. Customs and Border Protection. We routinely advised our senior officials in any kind of deliberative meeting not to take notes, do not save your materials. We would have liked many times to have recalled what they discussed, but the risk was far too great in our minds as agency counsel. I can just tell you, in all of those cases, we felt blessed that we could say there were no notes and not even get into the battle. So I certainly see some advantage to having that record, but I think we're 5 people who are intelligent and we can work out those differences. If there was something reportable, that would have been there would be a record of that. If not reportable, then it's something I think we can address together at a later point. So, echoing Mayor Bain there a little bit, I think for myself, the risk is too high and it would create a chill, I believe, on some of the discussion. So I would not support, although I understand the reasons for it, I wouldn't support taking minutes of the closed session.
Okay, and I would like to weigh in also.
Before you wrap up, before you wrap up, yeah, I'd like to just have one response, and that is, I agree with Chris's concern. As an attorney for administrative agencies, you want to protect your client, but think about this. What are we protecting the client from? We're protecting them from truth. We have a policy of truth and transparency. We shouldn't be hiding anything. So I think if we err at all, we need to err on the side of transparency, honesty, and disclosure. Anything that's truly needs to be disclosed, to not be disclosed, will remain confidential. So in the interest of transparency, I would again be supportive.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Noblock.
Just to address that final point, and I take that, Steve, and I agree, transparency is the name of the game. But what I'm talking about is the battle is not worth it because, frankly, there might be some attorney-client privilege, but there'll be things that aren't attorney-client privilege, and it might be deliberative process privilege or another privilege that's not nearly as strong. We were routinely beaten on those type of privilege assertions with trying to protect this kind of material. So I'm not so much, again, scared about that. Yeah, there's skeletons there that we're trying to hide. It's more about just like, we're 5 professionals, we're 5 individuals who know what we're talking about. We can work things out amongst ourselves. I don't know that we need a record of that that's hanging out there to defend.
Okay, so I'll weigh in. I was on the council that I guess over like 5 years ago, we changed the policy. There was a lot of discussion about it. It isn't to hide anything. we had a member in town who routinely showered us in PRA requests. And that member is Brad Malamud. And I believe Ms. Ferguson is trying to get, she's been trying to get these opened up. And I believe it's Mr. Malamud that really wants this. I believe one of our recent monthly totals for PRAs was 14,000. So I'm not going to be for this. I think for the reasons that I've already heard, I think it's a bad idea. Every council member is certainly welcome to call Mr. Smith to go over what we discussed if they can't quite remember a point. But I've never forgotten what I've done in closed session, or I could certainly ask, but I'm not going to be for minutes. I think it's a bad idea. It's worked fine without him. So would anyone like to make a motion?
Excuse me, Mayor Ward, before we go to the motion, I wanted to clarify something you said, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Ward. I did want to point out your statement about one of the public records request total cost for a month being $14,000. If this city would do like most cities and have its city clerk's office deal with CPRAs, those are requests for California Public Records Act requests for documents, and simply do those internally and give them out, we wouldn't have those costs. We're the only city with BBK as a client that actually has this minimum. I guess it's $5,000 a month. It has gone over, but we need to be more transparent and give out documents. I mean, personally, as a council member, I can't get documents of you plotting my censure that you did last November. You censured me, and I can't get emails. I can't get documents to see what happened. It's a political act, and they're all buried and hidden with BBK. So those costs can go away if we brought that in-house and actually complied with California Public Records Act and trained our staff to do so. We used to be trained to do so 7 years ago before BBK came on board. So I did want to clarify that to the public, that those costs are so high because we have attorneys doing it, multiple attorneys doing our public records requests on a regular basis. So thank you.
Okay. So Mr. Smith, can you answer that? Because I believe that the ones that you're dealing with are you're reviewing them for confidentiality, and there's a reason for that.
Well, I think that every entry in the bills that have been referenced is Mr. Malamud trying to discover attorney-client communications. And as much as I wish that clerical staff could be trained to respond to those, I'm sorry to say that the bills referenced are not about that at all. The current request is to see every entry and every bill ever issued by my firm since 2015.
Okay. So
if I may, Mayor Ward, a clarifying
Mayor
question
Ferguson,
for the city attorney. This is a question for the city attorney. May I please?
Okay.
Thank you very much. City attorney, I'm not aware of that. I am aware of the emails that aren't being turned over regarding the censure, which is a political act. There's nothing confidential or privileged about a political act. So I did want to make that clarifying point. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay, so
I understood that position, but disagree with it. Thank you.
Okay, so for the matter at hand, I'm looking for a motion at all. If any council member wants to add this to 4.7 to have closed session minutes. Currently, it does not say that in our policy. So it would take by motion to add it.
May I, Mayor Ward?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to add confidential closed session minutes to our policy 1201-11.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Noblock.
Councilmember Duncan,
No.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James,
No.
Mayor Ward.
No.
That motion fails 2-3.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, I have that as all of the items for this.
Yes.
And so Scott and Clerk, you will bring that back with all the full changes, and we will rule on it at the next council meeting. Okay.
We do have the one comment still.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, this is from Camille Wyatt. And it says, Mayor Ward needs to remember that she represents the city of San Clemente. Please behave professionally like an adult and with some decorum. Petty squabbles and her oblivious dislike for another member of council does not give her the right to treat them with disrespect on a regular basis. Mayor Ward may hold grudges, but please do not single out Councilmember Laura Ferguson and interrupt her constantly, unless she is willing to do the same to the other 3 male members. So far, she has not. I have never seen Mayor Ward interrupt council members James, Knobloch, or Duncan, or try and cut them off while they are still speaking. She does, however, do this to Councilmember Ferguson on a regular basis. Why is that? Please stop this immediately. Treat everyone the same and with respect. That is what true leadership is. Thank you. That's all I have. You don't have any more? That's all the public comments.
You're muted, Mayor Ward.
Thank you so much. I was trying to be considerate. Madam Clerk, so we're on item 4.
Yes, and item 4 is policy and procedure 1201-12, city council access to confidential documents.
Yes, Madam, I ask that this item be brought up. Some time ago, the city council approved a policy whereby confidential documents would be placed into what I refer to as a lockbox, but it's really an internet application off the city website or off the city server, if you will, that requires our council members, before we access this information, to sign an indemnity agreement for any damages, litigation that may come by any other party. And secondly, we have to, quote, agree with a pre-printed statement, which some of our council members have called loyalty oath. It's really just an agreement with a statement. And I brought it up because I think the government code makes clear that any elected official in this city is entitled to receive confidential documents. Historically, those confidential documents have been created in paper form and delivered in a confidential envelope signed by I guess, prepared by the city attorney, delivered to the council members with the other paper materials for the council agenda. I brought this up because I think it's unfair to ask any council member, myself included, or any of the other 4 of my colleagues here, to have to agree to indemnify a third party and to agree to the validity of a statement, which under some interpretation, someone may look at it and say, I don't agree with the statement in that paragraph. That wouldn't preclude them from receiving confidential documents, which the government code allows them to receive as a member of a publicly elected body. So in checking with the IT staff, I learned that the council could simply access to our own website, a private network accessible only by our password, sign up with a VPN, a username, and then share that file only among council members. The problem with that, I think, is probably going to be that other people, staff, have the opportunity and the requirement to enter that data, which means that confidential information is going outside the confidential realm. So my request is this: simply eliminate the policy that requires any council member to sign an indemnity agreement and to sign the agreement of that paragraph that we currently have to click on before we have access. So that's my recommendation: simply rescind that prior policy.
Okay, City Attorney, can you clarify that? Because I'm not sure that it was actually an indemnity clause. I'm remembering that had something about confidentiality and not waiving it for the council, something like that, but I don't remember indemnifying a third party.
There are 2 statements, are there not?
That's right.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, Mr. Knobloch was referring first to the access requirement to the software platform.
Correct.
That's where you find the
The
indemnity.
indemnity is by the app.
The local requirement is in section 2 of the policy, but the indemnity is in the platform itself.
Right.
We've been employing.
Okay. So Mr. Smith or Mr. Sund, if you could weigh in, when did the council change to this platform for confidential information to be released? And a little bit of background of why we did that.
So Mayor Eric Sund, from City Manager, the City Council, when they deliberated on the policy of confidential documents as part of that staff report, we also, while we provided a sample policy that the council subsequently adopted, in that staff report, we also communicated that for approximately $3,000 a year, we could get software that would be able to distribute confidential documents. That software's name is CapLink. It is a software provider that provides primarily confidential distribution of documents. A number of other government agencies utilize this document portal. One that comes to mind is the Toll Road Transportation Agency, the TCA, in terms of doing that. So as of that council action, we implemented the policy, and subsequently we purchased the CapLink software for the distribution of those confidential documents via electronic.
Okay.
And I want to say we've probably had it for coming up maybe 3 months. Time kind of goes quick, but about 3 months or so.
Okay. I did pull the agenda. I think we voted on it on November 17th of 2020. That's what I believe happened.
That's the date of the policy, Mayor.
Okay. Oh, the date. Okay. Yep. All right. So is there any other questions that council wants to ask?
Yes, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
So we have the indemnity agreement, and then we have basically the non-disclosure agreement. Is the program, can we edit those two statements to be more palatable to the council?
Mayor Pro, oh, go ahead. You want to finish your statement, please?
I was looking at Scott, but I was actually asking you the question, Eric.
So the statement as to what is written by the city, yes, that can be changed. However, it currently complements the confidential policy in terms of what is in there. So that would require the policy to change to reflect that. The cap-linked indemnity, I use the example of when you install Microsoft on your computer at home, you go through a series of terms and conditions that you agree to as part of that software, which Councilmember Knobloch's concern, the indemnity was brought up, and that's a cap link. And the answer to that is no, we cannot change that. But one thing that we did do when the concern came up about that indemnity, and Scott can help on this, we did talk to the JPIA to determine if the individual council member would be held, and the answer from the JPIA is no. We would indemnify all the council members because they are a council member when they, I'll say, access those documents via the cap link, so that the JPI would indemnify in the event there was something that occurred. But I hope that answered your question.
It does. So I guess I'm going to ask, did I ask Councilmember Knobloch a question? If we
yes.
If we just suck it up and take the indemnity clause and accept Eric's word, you're really not, subject to personal cost here. And if we were to take the non-disclosure agreement that's in there and change the verbiage to something that we could all feel more comfortable with, would that be acceptable to you?
Well, it would be helpful, Gene. The problem is that the cap link indemnity agreement, we don't have the power to change it at all.
Right, I get that.
And the statement that we have to click on and agree is not a confidentiality agreement. It's not an agreement at all. It's a statement which says, which really is just a generic reference to the documents that have been disclosed, that have been put in this lockbox, this what I call lockbox.
But we can change that.
we can change that. Now, the question is, would I be comfortable? I'd be more comfortable, but my concern is that I don't believe any elected official, in order to access documents that the government code allows them to have access to, should have to indemnify anybody. Now, I appreciate, I asked this question months ago and Scott gave me an opinion that, no, if you were sued by CapLink for anything, we would, the city would indemnify you. Well, that's a future action that may or may not happen. The city attorney may not be there to give that opinion at the time. We may not be there. There may be a new city council. We don't know who's going to be there in the future. My concern that as a public policy statement, it's inappropriate to ask any elected official, no matter if the TCA has done it, and I'm surprised this council would even consider positively anything the TCA has done, but I think it's just inappropriate to allow elected official to have to sign any indemnity agreement or an agreement which the government code currently requires of every elected official. The standard is there. It's important. It can be enforced. And I just think it's inappropriate. And quite frankly, one of our council members has not had access to a number of confidential documents because out of conviction, she's refused to indemnify a third party and to agree to statements that she may not agree with. So, Gene, I appreciate your comments and your willingness to think about that. I wish we could go to the lockbox that simply have our own IT people prepare an IT mechanism. But again, my concern there is you've got other people that have access, and now the integrity of the secrecy is potentially at risk. So I would say as a historical precedent, we simply go back to the way it was before November 17th of 2020. Before days before Councilman Duncan and I were sworn into office.
Councilmember Knobloch, just for point of order, can you address the rest of the council? Face the screen. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's hard to hear you talk sometimes when you turn. I know I did it too. It's difficult. Yeah, okay. Councilmember Ferguson.
Thanks, Mayor Ward. Yes, this confidential documents policy and portal was proposed by you on October 6th. After the SC Times started a series of cover stories, very fascinating, interesting information and great stories on a taxpayer-funded voter opinion poll in which the taxpayers paid $25,000 for. Not confidential. Didn't know about it. Public didn't know about it. I heard about it after it was done many months later, pieced it together. And that's why this was created. This was created to muzzle me so I wouldn't have information, and I couldn't give that information to the public that is non-confidential. It's public records. Political bodies can't just keep things secret and call them confidential when they're not, just because they don't want people to know about it. That's not transparency. That's not open government, and that's not legal. So that's why this was created for those watching tonight. And it was supposed to be, and in the minutes, it was supposed to be on the second meeting in October, but it wasn't. Our interim city manager at the time of our agenda setting conference, when I noted that, said that staff was too busy. So it was held over till after the election for that to be addressed by council 2 weeks before a new council was seated. Now, I have decided I will not sign this loyalty oath waiver to protect confidentiality because I follow the law, and the law doesn't require me to do that. Okay, the law allows me in the administration of my duties as an elected official by our constituency to be able to have any documents I want, okay, at any time. If they're available, I can walk into City Hall and get them. If they're hard to find, if they're in the storage vault, that's a different story. I'll have to wait. If they're electronically available, I can get those too. But I'm being denied documents, okay, confidential documents. It started out with the resumes when we started out interviewing candidates for our new city manager, and I didn't have them. So between special meetings and regular meetings, I've been denied confidential documents now, counting tomorrow night, I have none for tomorrow night's 6 items on closed session. I have no documents, okay, to make decisions on behalf of my constituency, wise decision making. I can't make now, right? So 6 meetings counting tomorrow night, I've been denied documents. Okay, that's illegal to not give me documents, and the government code stipulates that. Now, there are remedies in place in the government code for elected officials that do give out confidential documents inappropriately, illegally, and any governing body can go ahead and take the appropriate measures that are written out in the law in government code section 54963 to go ahead and take care of that and remedy it in a court of law. Okay, but that wasn't done to me because I haven't released anything illegally, but I was punished for it in a censure hearing, right? And same for announcing the threat of a lawsuit. It was permissible to release that to the public when our former city manager, James Maxinoff, threatened to sue us. That was permissible. To not release it to the public would have been unlawful. That information is releasable and required to be released to the people. And so therefore, I'm not going to enter into a portal and sign up for something when the law doesn't require me to do so. So my ability to serve the people who voted for me and those who didn't, who have supported me now, has been thwarted because now I'm in the dark on a lot of matters, and I still get to go to closed session, but I'm not fully informed anymore. And that's really unfortunate. And that not only hurts my ability to make decisions for the best of the city, but it also really diminishes my ability to be the voice for the people that I represent. So that's very unfortunate. And then let's see. Lastly, I'm hoping tonight that this city council does make a decision to eliminate this because it is not a legal practice to be having for our council to be practicing. And I'm really surprised that the city attorney let it get this far, let this get adopted by the city council because it's inappropriate, it's illegal, it's unnecessary. And but then again, I'm not surprised because he helped you, Mayor Ward, orchestrate a censure of me for doing nothing wrong, but following the law and following policies. And then now I have to live with a 6-page resolution out there that is full of lies about me, on the internet. And yeah, when you first brought this up, Mayor Ward, I thought, I'll wear as a badge of courage till I saw a 6-page resolution saying I broke the law. So not so fun anymore. So I'm hoping we could remedy that in the near future. But anyway, those are my comments. And I do miss getting confidential information. It has affected my ability to serve the people. And I do remind the city clerk and the city attorney in their elected capacities, in their official elected capacities, elected and appointed, pardon me, that I am being denied documents under the law. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Smith, I have some questions of those comments. Has any, I understand that Councilmember Ferguson doesn't want to log in on the portal. Has there been anything offered to her to accommodate her on that so that she can have confidential documents?
Well, the city council policy is what's before you, and where council members have not opted to use the electronic lockbox, the city clerk has made available to you the confidential documents in paper form by signing the same acknowledgement that's prescribed by the policy. So you are able to come in document by document, see their description and sign for them. But because the text of the policy is dictated by the council, that's what that item by item drawdown still requires. But
So the
council is an advantage of that to answer your question there.
Okay. So the policy that the council adopted, is it not the state law of what is confidential and waiving, I believe it said something about waiving confidentiality of the council? I mean, that's when we talked about the policy, but what is required to be signed? I'm not sure what is meant to be what the issue is of not signing for that in order to get the paper documents. I'm not sure what it says. I see Joanne looking for it. I don't have it.
Mayor Ward, I have a copy of it in front of me. Let me just read it real quick. It's not. very-
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
This is the statement. It says, in accordance with the City of San Clemente Policy 1201-12, the information assessed on this site is only to be viewed by members of the San Clemente City Council, members of the various commissions and city staff on a need-to-know basis. Pause. I'm going to pause there for comment. That statement could be objected to, and I understand has been objected to, because it says all information on this site, and there's a possibility that information on that site or information delivered may not be, in fact, as Councilwoman Ferguson pointed out, subject to true confidentiality. That's just my commentary. Continue reading. It says all information residing on this site is to be kept strictly confidential and not to be disclosed to any other person or entity not entitled to access, view, process, or information. Same comment where it says they have to agree not to disclose it, and if information is improperly placed there, it's improper to ask someone not to disclose it. I'll continue reading. Now, this is the part that I think probably the statement should simply say. Please be advised that under the California Government Code Section 52962, it's unlawful to disclose to any person not entitled to receive, it says confidential information, should just say confidential information, that has been acquired on the site in connection with a closed session without further express written authorization from the applicable legislative body. Willful violation of these terms may result in disciplinary action and or in the case of an elected official referred to a grand jury. In order to assure confidentiality of information accessed on this site, each eligible person's access to information on this site shall be monitored and a record kept of any such access. Now, there's a lot in there that 2 or 3 places where it could be, where you could argue and say that I can't agree to that. I think a simple statement, it simply says, this is what the government code says. If this is confidential and you're getting it and you disclose it, you could get referred to the grand jury, you're in violation of the law. And have a statement that says that's the fact. To have to sign that is also beyond the government code, because the government code doesn't require anybody to sign anything to get it, only that we comply with the government code. So I have no problem to address Jean's comment about modifying the language so that Laura can get written documents. I have no problem with this statement being modified to simply reference the government code sections on confidentiality and the sanctions that can be imposed on any person that doesn't honor it.
So I'm trying to figure out what you're saying. So we have the cap link system that requires that one statement, the indemnity. If we took that away, what are you saying, that if we had it to where before we personally gave out documents, they would sign that statement that you just said about the government code?
2 things. That's the second thing. The first thing is the cap links app indemnity agreement. We have no power over that. And the city attorneys also has just said, well, you can get around having to do that by going to the city clerk and getting paper documents if you sign this language that we just read. My suggestion would be to simply eliminate that statement and make a government code disclosure warning. And have that attached to every set of confidential documents that any of us may want to receive.
I think that's, I really think that's a fair compromise. I think that could get us around this.
Agreed.
Jean, can you talk a little bit louder, please?
I am so sorry. What Councilmember Knobloch just laid out, you know, a statement, a warning, a cover sheet with a warning, just like in the government where it says secret, top secret, confidential, whatever. You have a cover sheet, and you know that this is a document that you have to handle with special care. I totally concur with Councilmember Knobloch. Let's get around this. Let's put this behind us. Let's get Laura the documents that she needs.
Okay, so what I think I hear you both saying though is that's when we get paper documents that we get in a confidential envelope that's going to have that government code warning on there.
Right.
Okay, so we're not talking about PDF documents that we're just going to upload and put through. Okay, all right. Councilmember Duncan, do you have any comments?
No, I generally agree. I think an advisement of the government code is probably sufficient. I want to just move on and get past this so we can get on to regular business. And make sure that everybody has access to the records. I think Councilmember Ferguson should be having access to the records. Sooner we can get those to her, the better. And so, yeah, whether it's through the electronic system or in paper, I think an advisement of the government code is sufficient.
Would it be appropriate at this time to make a motion to have
Yes,
no block
go ahead.
come back on March the 16th with a proposed advisement?
Could I advise that that comes back in a staff report and staff writes that out, what the government code is, and then we can see if he agrees with that and the rest of the council.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine with me. I would want to clarify the motion to make sure that the information can be delivered to any council member upon their request with the regular agenda material without having to go to the city clerk's office and receive it. It ought to be easily accessible like their other material is. So
Okay,
I would make that.
that's a good,
Staff prepare a government code, an appropriate government code warning to be attached to all confidential documents that any of us may receive. And
okay,
and I'm not necessarily, I'll just leave it at
I'll
that.
second that.
okay. Motion by Councilmember Noblock, second by Mayor Pro Tem James.
Okay, one question, Mayor Ward, we do have one comment. Do you want to hear?
Oh, yes, please.
This comment is from Don Urbanek. It is my understanding that Councilmember Laura Ferguson is being denied access to the City of San Clemente's digital rights management system. That would mean she is being denied the right to see documentation for closed session agenda items. As a taxpayer and an individual that voted for Laura Ferguson, I would like to ask how City Council expects her to work on my behalf if she is denied access to pertinent information regarding closed session items. The answer is she cannot. That violates the civil liberties of every citizen in San Clemente because you have effectively removed her from office on closed session items. The reason that she's being denied access is because she refused to agree in writing to the following statement. The information, quote, the information accessed in this digital rights management system is only be viewed by San Clemente council members and city staff, end quote. Question, who wrote this? Prepared by the attorney and approved by Mayor Kathy Ward on November 17th, 2020. Is only be viewed. Did our city attorney really write this? Hopefully not. Our city attorney bills taxpayers $2 million per year in legal fees. Continuing, quote, it is to be kept strictly confidential and not to be disclosed to any other person or entity. Please be advised that under Government Code Section 54963, it is unlawful to disclose to any person not entitled to receive it confidential information that has been acquired by being present in a closed session of the City Council. Further, waiver of attorney-client privilege or release of attorney work product may only occur by a majority vote of the City Council as a body. A record of access to this information and your consent to these terms will be maintained by the city. What the law actually states is that a person may not disclose confidential information that's been acquired by being present in a closed session authorized by sections 54956.7, 54956.86, 54956.9, 54957, 54957.6, 54957.8, or 5497.10 to a person not entitled to receive it unless the legislative body authorized disclosure of that confidential information. Whoever wrote this illegal pledge has misstated the law. Government Code Section 54963 does not include every document, only the documents that fall into specific circumstances authorized in the sections named above. You are denying Councilmember Ferguson access to every closed session document because she refuses to sign an illegal pledge. If Councilmember Ferguson sees documents that constitute illegal conduct on the part of other city council members or city staff, it would be her obligation, her fiduciary duty to disclose such conduct and documents to the public that she was elected to protect. This does not pass the smell test, and I would hope that each council member would take seriously their fiduciary duty to the people of San Clemente who elected them. That's all for public comment.
Okay, for the motion on the floor.
Was there any discussion on the motion? I thought I saw a hand by.
Thank you, Councilmember Noblock. Mayor Ward, may I? Oh, you're muted. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to have a clarifying question. This, we're going back to the delivery of hard copy documents twice a month with the agenda, but not signing any kind of waiver or pledge. Is that correct?
My motion included doing that, Laura, for you and for any other council member that wants to receive documents that way. My motion didn't include the elimination of the cap link program for anyone here that wanted to take advantage of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noblock,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James,
Aye.
and Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
Okay, and Madam Clerk, before we go to the next item, is there anyone that would like to take a quick break? Go ahead, Councilmember Ferguson.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you.
Okay, so 5 minutes, 10 minutes? 5. Okay, all right, let's take a break. You can leave that. Okay, so I'll call this meeting, we're back from a brief recess. Madam Clerk?
Yes, the next item is consideration of city council leadership decision and protocol.
Okay. Mr. Noblock, I believe you agendized this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wood. I brought this matter up and wanted to discuss sort of how our council meetings have been going from a leadership perspective. I was very concerned at our last meeting when we terminated our meetings, and then when this one came back into order, there was a lot of confusion and concern about how we were to be conducting meetings. And that concerns me. I think it doesn't play well for the public and doesn't show that we're working together as we should. And I just wanted to comment, Mayor Ward, that the mayor serves at the pleasure of the council, and why we selected you as mayor. I just want to encourage you to perhaps be circumspect in certain issues. I'll just give a couple quick examples and leave it at that. The meeting last time I mentioned, another issue was recently a city press release was issued that the city strongly supports a bill, which quite frankly I support, but I was unaware that of the bill that it existed. I wasn't aware of the language of the bill. And I think before this, the city of San Clemente strongly supports anything, that the council have an opportunity to be informed, weigh in, and grant that support before it goes public. And that was a great concern. Also been concerned in terms of our dialogue, the interruption with certain council members, and I was very frustrated, and perhaps we could have discussed this in I don't know if that's appropriate in closed session, but I just wanted to just encourage you, Madam Mayor, to we need to all be on the same page and move forward circumspectly. And I think the items that we covered tonight and agreed on, I think will go a long way toward doing that. So those were really my comments that I wanted to bring up. I don't know if anyone else has any other, but I just felt obligated to share those. And
I appreciate that.
And regarding Pat Bates' bill, the bill that I mentioned was Pat Bates supporting the elimination of the TCA. I absolutely support that bill. I just wasn't aware of it, hadn't seen the language, didn't know anything about it. And the first time was when I read the press release, or when I got a copy of the press release from staff. So I'll leave my comments at that, Mayor Ward.
Okay. So Mr. Noblock, I do believe that will be coming back to the council for a letter of support, official letter of support for that bill. So does anyone else have any other comments to make on this item?
I have a few comments, Mayor Ward.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to support, of course, what Councilmember Noblock had stated. As council members, we don't want to be surprised by information when it goes out, or even, I know that's happened to me a few times on city council. So that's really important that comes back so we can really analyze those bills, for instance, to make decisions just so we're following policy. And let's see, I just wanted to note from our last meeting on February 16th, you had mentioned when we were live on the air that we had discussed masks and closed sessions. Number one, we don't divulge the discussion items of substantive information from closed session conversation that's not related, but I don't I number one wanted to point that out. You don't want to disclose, something that we made a decision on closed session. But secondly, that never happened. I couldn't find any documentation that even happened. So I did double check my memory. So I wanted to point that out, that we need to make sure we follow the law there. And then another issue I was concerned about recently is there was a pretty big deal that happened with the girls softball out at Steed Park. And it was literally within days that they got notice their Steed Park fields would be closed down for repairs for a month and a half. So, and I know, Mayor Pro Tem James and I had been emailing frequently with the parents because we learned about it by receiving about 100 emails from parents. But I'm still looking for answers from the interim city manager. He said he needed time, he's too busy. So I said, hopefully a week will be adequate. But you and I corresponded a little on that. And, you had indicated to me, as our mayor, you said that, you go to staff and it's their responsibility. But I really wanted to point out that sometimes things go sideways and the public isn't happy. So they come to us as council members, right, to figure out what's going on, to do a little research and maybe make suggestions. And sometimes it's not always what it seems. So I know it's important that, as our leader, that, we're on the same page there as a council, that intervening in certain things that do affect people's quality of life, especially 170 girls and 16 teams, it's important. So it's not always that, staff is right all the time. So in that instance, I did get involved, and so did Mayor Pro Tem James. I did find a free alternative to the safety issues that was rejected, but that's how it goes because it's a majority that makes a decision on going a different direction. But it's our duty to do that for the people. So I did want to point that out. And then lastly, back to the meeting on the 16th, we're on Zoom. So no matter where we're at, even if we're together, nobody knows that. So I know that we were at the community center and we were at our separate stations, 10 to 15 apart with 10-foot tall industrial strength plastic curtains, plexiglass around our desks. And I didn't have my mask on. I wore it in the closed room, the smaller room for closed session. And well, I walked to my safe station, but I took it off, and you made a big scene about it. And, I believe any scientist would have said that it's not necessary for me to be wearing a mask in fully protected safety protocols, implemented desks around me. So anyhow, but I just wanted to point that out because that was really unnecessary, that we had to temporarily shut down the meeting and go home. So I just, I'm Zooming from home now. I will be here Zooming from home. I don't want our meetings to be shut down. I thought that was completely unnecessary, and I don't want to see it repeated, but I will go back to wherever we are, whatever location, when we bring the people back, when we're in person with the audience, with the people that can access their government and address their government. But this setup isn't what I anticipated at all. And I was wrongfully condemned for not wearing a mask in a perfectly safe space. So that's all I have. And I just look forward to us working on more unified as the days go by. Thanks, Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Councilmember Ferguson. So I will address just quickly what you said about the softball fields. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I think every single council member called staff that Saturday when we started getting those emails. I personally addressed every single email that came to me until our city manager gave out the answer to all of them. And when there was a workaround, then I didn't have to respond to any, but I personally did respond to all of those. So I wasn't saying to you that you were the only council member that did that. I do agree with you that when we do hear from residents, we do ask the questions, but my feeling is that staff is responsible for this, and I am going to always support their authority to handle this. And I know that they will always look for a workaround and try to help our residents. So I trust in that, and I'm always going to stand up for that. So I was not saying that we shouldn't get involved, because myself, I was involved already on that. As for the last meeting, it is unfortunate. We all agreed that it was in the minutes that we didn't have to come. But when we talked about that we would be wearing masks, I think we all made the decision to come, and our staff did also. And when that was changed, it was unfortunate. So now we are back to Zoom, and everyone can do what they're comfortable doing. So I agree with that. I know some council members are present together, and that's great. So I do agree. I think we all want to work together. It is a concern of mine, having to try to run the meetings, that we are taking a very long time for the meetings. And one of the policies asks the city council to please prepare for the meetings and ask questions of staff beforehand. I know sometimes you can't get every question asked, and I understand the day of the meeting, it gets very, very busy and we get inundated with phone calls, but try to do that, because I would like to see our meetings expedited a little bit more. I think the discussion would go better. There was a comment earlier that no one should interrupt a council member speaking. I would remind you that you can do a point of order and call for the question. That is absolutely available to any city council member. If they believe a discussion has been going on too long and someone has talked, already said their points more than once, they can make a point of order and ask to call for the question. The mayor has to take that up. It's not interrupting someone, but it's everyone's right to decide that the discussion's gone on long enough and they can make a decision. So when you call for the question, we'll immediately ask for a motion. So I appreciate it. I think we worked well this weekend together. I was very happy to see that. And I will do my best. That's what I'm trying to do in these council meetings. I have no other agenda than to try to see the business get done in an expeditious way. If you'll notice in our policies, a lot of them say that staff has to be short in their presentations and not long. And it's because council does read the agenda, and we have already seen everything. So we don't want to see 20 slides. I think Chris Ham used to say, city manager, we want to see him in 4 slides or less, because that just wastes time. But I know we want to inform the public. So anyway, those are my comments.
Madam Mayor, I have some comments.
Go ahead.
I am disappointed that we're meeting by Zoom. I think we should be meeting in person. I think we should be developing protocols to bring the public in. If just a few, if not just one, or if just one to make public comments. I think this is incredibly an incredible disservice to our community by not meeting in public. We've been in this Zoom thing for a year now. Enough is enough. I have particular concerns, and I voiced that with the city clerk and the city attorney this evening. We voted to go into in-person meetings. We had a misstep, and we all went home on February the 16th and did Zoom. But we never voted to continue to do Zoom. And I think we need to identify that this evening. Are we going to continue to do Zoom? Are we going to do a hybrid? What are our protocols going forward? And lastly, I think it's incredibly important for us to connect with the public again. And enough of the city clerks reading comments. They don't want to read them. Well, I don't want to speak to them, but I'm certain that they get tired of reading them. And it's not like someone here who is articulating their position from their heart. And we really need to get to the point of public here, but immediately, and I understand, that there will be some baby steps getting the public in here. But immediately, we need to identify and clarify, are we on Zoom meetings or are we going to be in-person meetings? I, for one, say we should be in person.
So Councilmember James, I appreciate that. I think the discussion that the council had, just for point of clarification, was that anyone that we would meet in person, but anyone that doesn't feel comfortable can certainly Zoom in. And that's what the council agreed to. I think what happened at the last one, we made the motion to go to Zoom and we all went home. And then what happened at the end of the night, we were all so tired, it was after midnight. No one made any further motion. And I believe that is what happened and why we are on where we're at. But that's an intervening motion. So I think if we go back to where we were, certainly, we could meet at the community center, but it was with the intention that we could not make any staff or city council attend if they do not feel comfortable yet attending.
And one thing I want to make very clear for staff and the city clerk and the city attorney, and city manager, I don't think there was anything nefarious here. I think this was a communication issue between council and staff, and that we need to clean up and clarify this evening.
So I would say you're doing that right now. We're bringing it up in a public session. That's what we needed to do. That's what we didn't do at the last meeting. So understand that. So I just don't know logistically how that works with staff. If they are not comfortable, I don't know if we would look at how tonight is, because I'm not sure where anyone actually is. We all agreed and had a lot of discussions on this. Mayor Pro Tem James and I talked to Supervisor Bartlett today, and our county missed going into the red tier. We are still in the purple tier. We missed it. Our case rate is still too high for daily infections. So we are not in that 2-week period yet. I think we're at about 10% currently. So Councilmember James, you've noted that. Mr. Sun, would you like to comment on what could be available for people to meet at the community center? I'm talking about city council.
Mayor, so yes, we have basically created the foundation for in-person city council members to meet at the community center auditorium. I can say that I have staff members who have voiced concerns about appearing in person. So I would want to accommodate those via Zoom for those staff members that don't feel comfortable coming in person, whether it's presenting or interacting with the city council. I think, staff is looking for a direction from the city council, but as I heard from one council member, they don't want to return until the public can return. And Mayor Pro Tem Gene James, to your point, and I've been consistent in this, we wanted to do baby steps before we just opened the floodgates. And so my IT staff is still getting comfortable with this new platform that we're doing. And so if you were asking for staff's recommendation, and I don't know if you are, so I want to be cautious of that. Would you like staff's recommendation?
No, I think at this, Madam Mayor, if I might, I think at this point, we need to hear from the council. Gene Mayor Pro Tem has made his opinion clear. I want to make mine clear, and I agree with Gene. I agree with Gene completely that we should have open meetings. We should invite the public. This auditorium is huge. If the President of the United States can have a public meeting with people sitting in 6-foot circles or separated from each other, certainly we can put chairs in here that separate people with normal concerns, and anyone that is concerned and doesn't want to be here doesn't have to be here. But I think the city council and quite frankly, City Hall ought to open back up and allow our people to come in and conduct business in this city. It's a great inconvenience for our people not to be able to access City Hall and the various departments. So I agree, we should have public meetings, we should open up at the very next meeting, if we could, and I don't know what would be difficult with putting chairs properly spaced with a microphone. We could have a staff person spray down the microphone and podium after public speakers if they're, concerned about COVID. But I think we ought to get back to normal. And baby steps are nice, but some babies walk very early and quite effectively. So I'd be in favor of that.
And Mayor Ward, if I may, I just wanted to point out that our city of San Clemente early on decided to take guidance from the County of Orange, the Board of Supervisors. So we've done that in most regards, except for two. They remained open throughout the pandemic, okay, with safety protocols in place, have done an amazing job and allowed the public to continue to access their meetings and address their government. We didn't, as a body of council, we never decided to close down. All I know is staff closed us down at the time, the interim city manager. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, because I know things happen behind the scenes. I've learned that on council, and I'm not making any accusations. I'm just saying that I was the last person to be at a live meeting on March 17th of 2020. The other members called in and on the telephone. And then the next meeting, the first meeting in April, I was told not opening up, and we didn't make a decision as a body. Very disappointing. I tried to get us opened up, but to no avail. But we have followed the county and all guidance, and except for that, and opening up our offices to business of this community. And the County of Orange opened up in June of 2020. I've been there to do business twice last year. They do an incredible job. It's a fine example. I did connect Mr. Sund with Robin Styler, the clerk of the board, when we decided to take that baby step that we took. And she has a great plan and it's working really well. And I think we need to follow that guidance, since we follow the county on everything else. And just as recent as about 4 or 5 days ago, I saw an email from our economic development officer. And in the email, he had a statistic that said Orange County had 12 COVID cases per 100,000. So I'm really shocked to hear, Mayor Ward, that you said it's taken a big leap since then in just a matter of days. So I certainly want to see that. And another thing, we've heard some comments tonight. I don't want to forget to say this, because because we've been on this Zoom, this chat feature has been a great way of exchanging ideas, commenting, praising, criticizing, all the things that we want in a democracy that people can't do in person anymore. And that went away. And I never got any answers on that from the meeting. I tried to bring it up twice at that last meeting. I was dismissed. I know Councilmember Knobloch brought it up. And then I know Mr. Sund said something about the platform, but it isn't. This chat can be seen anywhere. It's remote, it's easy, it's literally a flip of a switch, a couple buttons. But I did email him, and I'd love to have us talk as a council tonight to see what happened, because he didn't write me back to tell me what happened, why it happened. And he indicated at that meeting, when I was surprised, and so was Councilmember Knobloch, that it went away. And he said he talked to council members, but I don't know what council members that was. I know 2 of us were surprised. I'm not sure if the rest of you did, the 3 of you, but we need to get that back, especially if we're not going to be open. But it's something fun and engaging for people, whether you agree with the comments or not. I don't watch them during the meetings. I have my Zoom on full screen here all the time, but people enjoy it. Whatever gets people engaged in their government, I'm all for it. So can we talk about that and find out? I'd like to know what happened, and I know the public does too. Thank you.
Councilmember Ferguson, if you could please address me and ask to speak so that I know you're going to start talking, that would be helpful. So Mr. Sund, you asked Mayor Pro Tem if he would like staff comments. Could you provide that now? Because I would like to hear it.
Thank you, Mayor. So from a staff recommendation standpoint, if the council wants to give direction to continue to mature the in-person council meetings, we can return to the in-person. I would recommend that we still allow a Zoom option for those staff that are not comfortable meeting in person. And then, as I've communicated before, we then After a few of those meetings and kind of work out the kinks, if you will, we then bring in public comments as the second step. And then as the third step, again, consistent with what I've said in the past, we then bring in a small group of public to be able to sit and watch the council meeting.
And I would like to add, Mayor Pro Tem, if we could, that for that third step, that the county is clearly in a position where our case rate is down, where it's widespread, because that is currently our where we're at with COVID-19. So I would ask that there be some type of with the in-person and the public, that it would be geared to where we are in opening up for the county. Because as the supervisor talked about, we didn't make it into the red yet, and we still have to do this along with all of the other counties. And the reason for that is because if the other counties open and we're stuck in the middle, all those people will be coming to us and visiting us because we have good weather, and our case rate will go up again. So I would just like to see that tied to some metric with the opening. And I'm doing that for staff safety and for the safety of City Hall.
Excuse me, Mayor Ward, point of clarification, please, if I may.
Yes.
In your talking points right now, you just had indicated COVID's not as widespread, but earlier you were saying our cases are going up. And then I stated a statistic from staff just a few days ago saying 12 of 100,000, 12 cases per 100,000, very, very low. It's taking a nosedive.
I believe they have to go to 7, Mayor.
Like
Councilmember
43%.
Ferguson. I believe they have to go to 7. Staff could correct me on that, but I think it's 7 is the number or less.
So just to clarify, so it's Councilmember Ferguson, you're referring to the 100,000 in terms of the hospitalization rate, are you not?
No, case rate 12 per 100,000 in Orange County.
I can't speak to that. I'm looking at the county's COVID positive cases received, and today's COVID count is 179 positive cases for today. I'd have to look at that information to be able to comment on it.
But that's really low compared to, say, even just a month ago. But this came from your staff, the 12 cases per 100,000, Mr.
And Councilmember Ferguson, I will tell you that the county and our staff, I was on the call last Friday. They were very excited that the trend looked like it was going down, but Supervisor Bartlett told us today that we didn't make it. That trend didn't continue. So we weren't able to change from purple tier. So that's the comment that I made. I was surprised because I thought they were going to tell me we've been in the red tier for like 4 days.
Right.
And
Well,
that's not the case.
Right. And they're still open, though. The county's still open, having their public meetings with the protocols in place. So we can too.
Okay, well, so we have a recommendation for staff. Yes, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I highly encourage us to open to the highest degree possible. I mean, the county is open. Other city governments are open. We have great protocols in place. I think that it's been a year. I did my protest of going to City Hall from March until December, doing the Zoom from City Hall, from the old City Hall, the council chambers, and I feel that we, as the elected officials of this city, have to be out front. We have to absolutely be out front in bringing the public in, both from the perspective of council meetings into what is now our temporary council chambers, and to City Hall. It kills me when I walk into City Hall and see all those plans sitting outside. And when we need to have economic growth in this period of COVID, and I would just encourage my fellow council members to let's push to get this city hall open, and let's push to get the public in here. Granted, I may not be as aggressive as Councilmember Noblock is on this, because I think we need to have baby steps. We need to figure out how to do it and what works and what doesn't work. But let's put together a plan sooner rather than later. And when I'm talking sooner, I'm talking after tomorrow night. Let's have staff put together a plan and bring it to us on March the 16th.
Which includes spacing for public members to be present
Which
with us.
includes spacing for public members, yes.
Mayor Pro
Okay.
Tem, if I may.
Yes.
So that's not a problem whatsoever. In terms of opening to the public, we are in the process of beginning that process. And so I've been working with staff. We have an appointment system. We're training staff on that. So that is moving very quickly. And I can probably estimate that we'll be looking to invite the public for appointment-based meetings within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Not the concern. What we are offering, and immediately or sooner than later, is we're going to start doing Zoom appointments for applicants for permits so that they can connect teleconferencing wise with a planner or with a building technician, et cetera, to discuss their permit and at the same time look at their plans electronically as they're discussing that. So we'll have both of those options available to the public in the very near future.
So we would be using the Track It program to do that?
For the appointments?
No, to review plans, for plan review.
Well, yes, but we would be, in essence, when they're Zooming, they could actually share their screen to show us their plans, and we could do the same within the Zoom feature outside of the Track It program.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, council, if there's no other discussion.
Mayor Ward, may I please? I didn't get
Yes.
an answer, or we didn't have any discussion about the chat feature.
Okay, so discuss
Before we
that
go,
now.
before we go to that, Mayor Ward, I just
Yes.
want to clarify. So I want to make sure that once we go down this road, there's always that option for staff to be able to zoom in if necessary, because they may not be comfortable with a lot of people coming in. So that's something City Manager Sun to think about as we roll out, that there's a screen or something, where the Zoom presentation can be displayed, or some other measures. So there's always that option for staff to zoom in for their own safety, even if we open up and start bringing people in.
So Councilmember Duncan, great point. We are in the actual purchase of acquiring 2 more flat screens so that those will be available to you to view not only that, but more importantly, PowerPoints and other things that can be more visible to you when you're deliberating. So that is in the works.
So Mr. Sun, in that vein, I am concerned about asking a staff member to have to clean a microphone and approach the public, and how exactly that's going to happen. There's just going to have to be a lot of protocols, because I'm afraid they're not going to be comfortable. So
No.
please look at that.
Your points are well taken, and we'll make sure that we address it.
Okay.
Mayor Ward.
So
when
Laura,
you have a-
yeah, go ahead. Joanne?
I was going to say that whenever you're ready, we have a comment.
Okay, I believe, is the comment on what we're talking about or something else?
It's on this agenda item. Apparently it came in same time I was announcing the comment, so was before deliberations.
Okay, so go ahead and read that, and then we'll get back to Councilmember Ferguson's comment.
Okay, this is an anonymous comment. Good evening, members of the City Council. I'm pleased that this item has been placed on tonight's meeting agenda. This council needs to remove Kathy Ward as mayor. We need someone to lead this city, as she is not the one to do it. She constantly states that she has the experience on council, yet she can't even run a meeting. Almost every single council meeting since she has been mayor has gone past 11 p.m. because she just can't stop talking. No respect for the public's time who tune in to watch. She creates types of and procedures that don't even exist. Just because things have been done a certain way doesn't make them right. The fact that she dislikes Councilmember Ferguson is so apparent, it's uncomfortable to watch. She's such an embarrassment for the city. She needs to stop interrupting and speaking over her fellow council members and allow them to make their point. I urge the council to take necessary steps and remove Kathy Ward as mayor. And that's all for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ferguson, would you like to bring up the subject that you had brought up before?
Oh, I talked about the chat already. I already made my comments on that. I just was looking for, number one, a discussion on why that happened and why two members, at least that I'm aware of, that spoke up at the last meeting were left out, how that can be removed and who did it and why.
So I think Councilmember Ferguson, if you want to agendize talking about that or a vote for it, that's what's necessary than just commenting on it.
Okay, Mayor Ward.
If you want to do something.
Okay, but my point is there was no discussion or vote to take it away. So.
Okay, so I
doesn't
do
make much
remember it was brought up during presentations and I was trying to stop that. And I said it could be brought up at the point in the meeting where it could be brought up. And it would have had to been agendized.
Okay, were you involved in discussing this? Okay.
No, I knew
Mr.
nothing
Sun-
about it. So this
Mr.
isn't like
Sun-
a question answer. We don't do this right now at a council meeting.
Point of order, please. Point of order.
That is a point of order.
Point of order. Point of clarification.
Okay.
Mr. Sun, did you not announce at the last meeting, Mr. Sun, that you talked to council members in advance before turning off the chat? You're muted.
As I conveyed Councilmember Ferguson at the last council meeting where I discussed this, I communicated that on the new Zoom platform with the in-person meetings, we had disabled the chat function because other public meetings, i.e. commissions and committees, that chat does not exist. I had indicated, you're correct, that I had indicated through briefings with council members, I had communicated this in advance. I also communicated that if the council wanted to give staff direction to turn it back on, they could do so.
Well, thank you for saying that, but it was council's decision to have turned it off. And what committees and commissions do, that's not council. We're council, right? We set the policy. These are our meetings, and it was our decision to make. But if in deference to you, Mayor Ward, I'm happy to make a motion that we place this return of the chat to enable that again on the next agenda. That's my motion for that. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, so discussion. I personally don't believe that chat, I didn't know it existed. I don't believe that it's a city council function, an official city function, so I'm not going to be voting for that.
Is this a vote just to agendize it or is this a vote to do it?
No, it's to do it.
Oh,
We're taking it up.
No, I was voting to put it on the agenda.
For future.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So
Support the motion.
that was a motion by Councilmember Ferguson, a second by Mayor Pro Tem James, and we can vote on it and have a staff report. Or
I don't think we need.
you just want to bring it under new business? Excuse me, Councilmember Noblock?
Just gonna say, I don't know that we need a staff report. I think just we need to do it. Simple instructions. It's a very simple 2-button step.
Scott, can you opine on that? Because, I'm a little confused. They're asking for it and then they're asking for it to be agendized. So I just want to clarify.
Well, here's what I think, Mayor and Council, is that you've got two members that want to discuss the larger policy at your next meeting. I think night when you adjourn, if it is that simple, you can prescribe whether it be on or off at your next meeting and then tackle the long-term solution when it's agenda.
Would be on the agenda.
I
Is that what you said? You went down. I couldn't hear the end.
I would suggest that you do what's proposed, which you have two members to have a full discussion on
Okay.
the agenda. You can also, when you adjourn tonight, decide at your next meeting whether it's going to be on or off at your next meeting. I think that is properly part of the discussion of the terms for adjournment tonight.
Okay, thank
I have a
you.
question for the city attorney, please, Mayor Ward. City
Yes,
attorney.
go ahead.
Thank you. City attorney, so I'm asking you a question about this chat feature, okay? Since we've been on Zoom, it's been part of our meetings, okay? It's been part of the activity of people to tune in and talk to each other in our meetings. So it's been something that's pretty much set a precedent, okay? It's something that people have done, okay? So this was removed by staff talking with 3 council members. Is that not any kind of hub and spoke or Brown Act violation?
I have a point of clarification for the city attorney.
Okay.
If we've had 2 council members asked to agendize this, is it improper to be discussing it now?
I'm asking a legal question, actually.
No, you're not asking a legal question that I know of.
Brown Act.
I don't know that it's a legal question.
I'm just curious.
Councilmember Ferguson's hypothetical would constitute a Brown Act violation. But what I'd prefer is to discuss that more, and I'm sure she'll agree at the meeting when you have this on the agenda.
I don't want to address, I'm just asking a question. I'm not doing anything, but I'm just trying to get my head around what happened, because this has been a feature that's been part of our council meetings, okay? This is a council meeting, okay? And staff doesn't decide like they did last year, whoever made those decisions. I know we had a different interim city manager at the time, to take those meetings away, take anything away from our meetings without us deciding so and having discussion, okay? Because we direct staff, it's not the other way around. And I see this as very overreaching, and I'm just trying
Councilmember Ferguson, we're going to discuss this at the next meeting,
Well, I'd
so
like it
I
to
do
be
need to
turned
stop you in the
Okay,
interest of
okay, okay,
time for the
okay.
council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, what's left is for an adjournment. Is there a city council member who would like to do an adjournment?
Oh, excuse me, point of order, Mayor Ward, did we vote on that, all 5 of us?
Vote on what, Councilmember Ferguson?
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. I thought I missed something. So we're on number 6, that's the adjournment.
Are we looking for a motion to adjourn?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I
Thank
move
you.
to adjourn.
I will ask for a friendly amendment to that motion to adjourn. And that motion would be that we adjourn instructing staff to put the chat feature back on, and any Zoom feature, anytime this council meets in any way using a Zoom feature or any other feature that qualifies for a chat feature for our citizens, that be enabled. And that's part of my friendly suggestion, Chris, for your motion.
You don't have
thought
to
that
take
was-
that.
I thought that's an agenda item that's going to be discussed at the next meeting.
Is, but it may not be if the 3 of us, when we adjourn, and as the city attorney mentioned, if we, in our adjournment, instruct that the chat feature will be in fact included, that would moot the need to discuss it next time if we vote 3 in the process of adjournment. Is that correct, city attorney?
I think that the long-term policy should be discussed as a standalone agenda item, just because that's not on tonight's agenda. But how you tee up the meeting tomorrow, with or without chat, I think you can discuss.
Okay,
later.
then I would, Chris, if you're comfortable with that, I would ask that we queue up chat for the next meeting.
Thank you.
You know, the chat, we're spending way too much time on the chat. I don't care if the chat's on or off. Let's just, I'll accept the amendment and let's move forward.
I'll second that motion to include chat. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay, and is the motion to have a council meeting in person tomorrow, or is it?
I think we clarified that. We talked about that in the last item.
I think the direction was to come back at the 16th with a plan, as Mayor Pro Tem Jean Jane said, and then tomorrow's meeting would still be what I'll refer to as the hybrid. You can Zoom in or you can be present.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Motion by Councilmember Duncan and a second by Councilmember Noblock.
Okay, Councilmember Duncan,
Aye.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noblock,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem James,
Aye.
and Mayor Ward.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
Okay. Thank you for everyone's time.
Thank
And
you.
we'll
Mayor
see you
Ward.
tomorrow night.
Good
We
night.
are adjourning to March 2nd, where closed session will be at 5 and the business session will be at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much.